I love her. She's good. Yeah, she's good. I miss her. Yeah. It's been so long now. We get really on it.
Oh, the space you're not using.
Yeah, there's kind of down the
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, when I'm shooting that way, you'll see.
Okay, yeah, you shoot. Yeah, it'll be better. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you wanted to have? Yeah, well, I get your
Oh, he needs it on the floor. Oh, I said you put it on the floor because you told me like,
Oh, really? So where's
She brought it up there. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know. She's like, because of this, I'm like, you know, I
ready for a barbershop protest.
are you prepared for anything?
whatever works.
Good afternoon, court's in session. You may be seated.
On the record, People versus Joanne Simon. So ask Shannon to mark these, exhibit A and B, is that appropriate?
Yes, Your Honor, it is. Thank you. I have one more witness after this that's been waiting. Looking at the time, if we're going to go to a 5, is there the court's permission to release that witness? I would expect I have probably at least another half hour of direct, and then I've been informed by Mr. Morgan off this cross maybe an hour and a half, and then I would assume it would be a recross. So court's permission, I would be sure to come back on the 16th.
Sounds like that's practical. Any objection?
No objection.
I think the cross will be enough time to finish up until 5 o'clock.
You estimate your cross might go.
Oh, at least, Your Honor, at least.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, approach the witness, Your Honor.
Wait till you get close there to talk, because you need to be near a microphone, and right now you're not. Uh-huh.
Have you had the opportunity to look at proposed Exhibit C?
Yes.
Does that now refresh your memory that the May 14th meeting was not a regularly scheduled meeting,
Yes.
and that the meeting did take place?
The May 19th meeting was on my calendar. Yes.
Well, May 19th, yes, but do you see that the May 14th meeting did take place if you look at Exhibit A and B,
Yes.
and that you took with you a May 14th folder that you prepared?
I don't have independent recollection of taking the folder, but I'm going to assume that I did because it is dated 5/14 and it has materials that seem relevant to the meeting on the survey, the McCaskill survey.
And you also, for the May 19th regularly scheduled meeting, prepared a different folder, did you not?
I don't believe that I did. I believe that I put the agenda, the May 19 agenda, in the May 14 file. There is a separate folder that's here, but I'd have to explain more about that folder.
In that May 19th folder, does that have your writing at the top right portion with the date in the President Simon agenda?
Is this People's Exhibit 41?
Yes.
That is not my handwriting.
You know who that is?
I do.
Who's it?
It's a temporary, after my secretary retired in June of 2019. Apparently, this document had been filed someplace else, and the temporary assistant put the document that is inserted here with my handwritten notes on it in this file folder that she made and put it with my president meeting folder.
You said June 2019. When did that happen?
My assistant retired in June of 2019. I mean, what year are we now? 2019? It's 2018. And a temporary secretary was brought in to go through file folders and make sure that we were going to archive my secretary's files. She found this document that's in this folder. It apparently had been among my retired assistant's materials. She put it in this folder and put it in the file drawer where I kept my meeting agendas for the president. So you have the 514-14 file that had an agenda with no handwriting on it that I assume I took into a meeting or was intended to talk to the president about on 5/19. And then when she located this agenda with my handwriting on it in the summer of 2018, she put it in a separate file. She would not have had this one because it had been sent to the Attorney General's office.
You're talking about the 514 one?
The 514 file had been submitted to the AG's office in response to a February 2018 request for documents that were related to Larry Nasser. And because this file had his name on it, I believe that's why it was sent to them.
Okay. And you could have put his name on it any time after the 16th of
Yes.
May, correct?
Yes.
You could have put it on in 2016 when he was again found to do something wrong. Is that correct?
It's possible.
And you could be in your office and you see that, oh my gosh, this thing exploded. And he is being, shall we say, accused of doing the same thing that I heard about in 2014. You could have written it on that file then. Is that correct?
That's correct, but
You could not have written it on May 14th because it hadn't even happened yet on May 14th. Is that correct?
to the best of my knowledge, I had no knowledge of that on the 14th.
But as you can see from Exhibits A and B, there was a regularly scheduled meeting on the 16th, on the 14th, not between two of you, but a whole crew of people doing a congressional survey addressment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. We will move to the admission of Exhibits A, B, and C, Your Honor.
Any objection to the admission of A, B, and C?
Your Honor, I don't know that this witness has identified any foundation for those. whether or not she actually received them, whether or not she asked for them. All that she indicated was, first, that they didn't refresh her recollection. So I don't know if this witness is the proper one to provide the foundation with that. In terms of a business record, on an exception to that, I don't think this witness actually testified to anything out of those emails other than what Mr. Morgan said.
Okay, well, you want to deal with those later in cross-examination then?
I can, Your Honor, except for one thing.
What?
Her name is on them. Her address is on them. And actually, her office sent one of them out.
Oh, I don't think, okay. Well, let's move ahead and try to get through direct exam, and I'm not admitting them right now. So if you want to pursue it, cross-examination.
And just so we're clear, Your Honor, as part of the stipulation the counsel and I had discussed, I'm not objecting in terms of the business record portion of it. It's just this particular witness's knowledge of those. And so I believe that these are the emails that we supplied you with. Yeah, these would have been emails that had been pursuant to subpoena that we sent to MSU. So I'm not arguing authenticity, I'm arguing admissibility. So, what do you think?
I think we got it.
Okay, good check. Okay, Ms. Moore, you were asked whether or not you went back and wrote the name on that folder, Nassar, after it came to light of all of the terrible things that Larry Nassar did. Do you recall that question?
Yes.
Did you go back and do that after the Nassar case became public to somehow exonerate yourself?
No.
What was the purpose behind writing the notes on the outside of that file prior to your meeting with President Simon?
I can't.
Your Honor, she already testified. She didn't know when she wrote it on, and it could have been in 2016. And he's just putting into his question, why did you put it on then? And gave a different date. She's already testified that she doesn't know if she wrote it any time up to 2016.
No, I believe her answer was it was possible, but she had also testified that she believed it was prior to the May 19th meeting. That's why I'm asking the clarification.
Okay, please go ahead and answer.
I'm saying it's possible. I can't recall.
And going back to the interview, your testimony under oath on July 26th of 2018, obviously that was 9 months ago. Was your recall better then as it related to this specific topic?
I don't know specifically what you're referring to in the document.
Well, let me show you the transcript from that interview. You take a look at page 46.
Excuse me, which interview?
The July 26th, 2018 sworn statement. Starting on page 46, line 11, and just read from there through page 54, and then I have some questions.
I'm sorry, where do you want me to begin?
Starting at 46, line 11.
And the outside notes.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't read it out loud.
Oh.
Just read it yourself. See if that refreshes your recollection, and I'll ask you some questions.
I'm sorry, through one.
54.
And how far did you want me to read?
54. You had the opportunity to review it?
Yes,
And that was your sworn statement under oath on July 26th, 2018, is that right?
yes,
And you were asked about that May 14th, 2014 file folder, weren't you?
yes,
And you confirmed that in fact was your file folder as you've testified today?
yes,
And you were also asked about the note on the outside of the folder, is that correct?
yes,
And did you identify that was your handwriting?
yes.
And you also talked with...
Excuse me, objection, Your Honor. This is improper questioning. He's asking the witness what she testified to, just having her repeat testimony that she gave in a statement. This isn't being used for impeachment purposes, as I understand. So isn't her testimony, what she says today, the only relevant testimony unless that's used for impeachment purposes?
Well, actually, Your Honor, I was doing this to refresh your recollection. My next question was actually going to address that area. So those are sort of preliminary questions.
Your next question is going to be what?
And address the area of whether or not she's refreshed her recollection. That's why I was kind of recapping that we had talked about these things before.
Okay, well,
Then it's improper if he's doing it to refresh her recollection. She should just read it and then ask if that's refreshed her recollection and then ask whatever question he wants instead of having to, instead of repeating all of the testimony.
well, let's proceed. I think we're probably doing more repeating than we need to. Go with the next things along more than that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Having reviewed your statement from July 26th, did that refresh your recollection about why you made those notes on the outside of your May 14, 2014 file? You can look at page 54, see if that refreshes your recollection.
54 contradicts another page. Let her read the whole thing and then she can answer your question.
Is 54 part of what she already read?
Yes.
So she's read
Yes.
the whole relevant part.
Okay.
Your Honor, excuse me, I'm going to cut to the chase here. Page 54 says she doesn't even remember the meeting, period. So how could it possibly refresh her recollection as to anything? When she says in the transcript that's supposed to refresh her recollection, she can't even say they met on that day.
Well, Your Honor, if Mr. Silver would like to testify again, I'd be happy to cross-examine him. But I have the opportunity to ask this witness questions about that meeting, and specifically the statement that she made on page 54 was why she wrote those notes.
Okay. See.
Looking at page 53 into 54, you were asked about why you wrote those notes on the outside of the file. Does that refresh your recollection about why you wrote the notes on the outside of the file that included Dr. Nasser and S.A.?
I'm sorry, I don't see anything on 53.
In the 54.
Your Honor, I'm going to object if Mr. Teeter plans to point to specific lines to cue the witness or something. I don't think that's appropriate, and that's apparently what's happening.
Your Honor, page 54, starting at line 12, I'm going to ask the witness to review that to see if that portion refreshes her recollection. And unless there's some kind of legal basis for that objection, I'm entitled to do that.
I think she's read it over quite a bit and is still struggling to remember. So we can't force memory if it isn't there.
Ms. Russell, does that section refresh your recollection specifically about why you wrote down those things?
I see what it says here. And I'm not going to say I didn't say those things. And what I also say is that I don't...
My question was, did it refresh your recollection about why you wrote those things down?
Your Honor, this is not fair. He doesn't like the answer he's about to get, so he interrupts her. She should be entitled to complete her
I think she
answer.
was starting to read something.
Right, and it was going to be non-responsive to my question.
We don't know.
Well, I think that's what the topic is.
Right. Ms. Russell, have you read the section I asked you about with regard to why you wrote those things down?
Yes.
Okay, does that refresh your recollection when you told us those things under oath on July 26th of 2018 of why you wrote them down? Does that refresh your recollection today?
It does.
Okay, and why did you write those things down?
Because I indicated that they might be of concern and that's something I would talk to her about. But I
Okay.
also said some other things.
No,
So.
that answers my question. And then the May, I believe you testified when you were asked questions by Mr. Morgan on
Excuse
that the
me, Your
May.
Honor. She should be entitled to complete that answer. That's not fair.
No, that is too fair. You have the right to cross-examine. She just has to answer this question and we move on once she's answered this question.
Thank you, Your Honor. In response to Mr. Morgan Ross' question about that the May 19th agenda and the May 14th file, do you remember those questions?
I have some vague recollection of it, but I can't remember the details.
Okay, no, that's okay. Maybe I can clarify. As I understood your testimony, there was some, your temporary person came into your office after your secretary retired?
Yes.
Okay. And so the May 14th file, is that the file that you took to the May 19th meeting, the one with President Simon?
I can't recall if I did or I did not.
Okay, well, you testified that you had a May 19th agenda in that May 14th file, right?
Yes.
And that agenda was for the meeting with President Simon?
Yes.
And the notes on the outside were because you thought those would be things of concern that you would talk with President Simon about? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you talking about the May 14th?
The May 14th file folder, which included a May 19th agenda in it.
And were you referring to comments from the outside of the folder too?
Yes, that's on the May 14th file that included the May 19th agenda inside of it. Maybe I can clarify. The file that you prepared initially, was that for a meeting on May 14th?
I believe it was.
Okay. And it looks like, if I understand Mr. Morganraw's questions correctly, there was another meeting that got scheduled with regard to the McCaskill sexual assault survey on May 14th. That was the email chain that he showed you?
I'm assuming that the 514 file that is marked People's Exhibit 12 is the file folder that was intended for the meeting on May the 14th.
And then at some point, your meeting moved to May 19th. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. That's contrary to what you testified to. There were two meetings, and the exhibit showed it, and he's trying to lead her someplace else.
Maybe I can clarify.
All these exhibits show two meetings. He says, no, it occurred on a different day.
I'm confused, and I don't know if anybody really knows if the May 14th meeting happened or if it got adjourned and combined with the May 19th meeting. It doesn't sound like she normally had two meetings with Dr. Simon post-time period. But
Yeah, maybe I can clarify. The May 14th meeting about the McCaskill survey, that was not a one-on-one meeting with you and President Simon, was it?
Based on the exhibits that I've been given, it was not a one-on-one meeting.
Okay. The May 19th meeting, was that the one-on-one meeting that you normally had every month?
That appears to have been from the other exhibit that I was given, that would appear to have been one of my monthly meetings with President Simon.
Okay, is that why there was an agenda prepared for that meeting?
An agenda would have been prepared for that meeting based on what I have here.
Right, the May 19th meeting, correct?
The May 19th meeting.
And then, I believe it's in Exhibit 41 is actually the original. Is that your notes on the agenda from that May 19th meeting? This is 41.
There are two agendas for that meeting, one with handwritten notes, one without.
Correct. In fact, we saw those with Exhibits 10 and 11, correct? Those were photocopies of the blank agenda and then a copy of what ended up being Exhibit 41, which is your handwritten notes from the agenda?
I typically had two agendas, one that I would have had given to President Simon and one that I would have kept that had my notes. File folder that's dated May 14 has the one that does not have my handwritten notes in it.
That's the one that's in Exhibit 41?
That's the one that's in Exhibit 12. That's People's Exhibit 12.
I'm sorry, that's correct. My question was on the handwritten notes one. That's the one that's in Exhibit 41?
That's People's Exhibit 41.
And those are your handwritten notes?
Yes.
From your meeting?
That would have been a discussion that I had with the President on that day.
President Simon.
Can I clarify something here? Are those notes that you put on the agenda before meeting with her to help you to refresh your memory about to expand the subjects on the agenda, or were those notes you took at the meeting while you were talking with her?
I believe, given what's in the handwritten notes, that it would have been during a discussion with the President on that day. Because, again, it says May 19 by phone. So that's why I'm saying these would have been my notes from a discussion with the President based on the agenda that we had for May 19th.
And some of your notes actually reflect instructions that you received from President Simon on some of those topics. Is that correct?
I don't know if they would have been instructions from her to do things, but they do reflect what I think came out of some discussions.
If we can back it up to May 16th, did you talk to President Simon on the phone on that day?
On May 16th?
That was the Friday?
I don't believe that I did.
Let me show you what's been marked as. F. Can I ask you to take a look at this document? Would you describe that for the record?
It's to Luana Simon, Robert Noto, Christine Zako, from myself, subject 5/19/2014, letter to McCaskill, final, without red line 3, dated Sunday, May 18th, 2014, 10:06:58 p.m.
And who was that email sent by?
From myself,
From what email address?
P. Russell.
That was your MSU address?
Yes.
And what day was it sent?
May 19th or Sunday, May 18th, 10:06 p.m.
Was the omission of proposed exhibit 27F?
Any objection?
There's been no testimony, Your Honor, that she had a conversation on May 16th because it's not clear, at least to me, whether when she says paragraph 2 is new based on the conversation we had Friday a.m., whether that pertains to a conversation with Luann Simon or Bob and Chris. It's hearsay within hearsay. So we do object, Your Honor, because this is an email where she is talking about conversations she had with Bob and Christine, whoever they are, and she's relating her conversation with Bob and Christine. So it's hearsay within hearsay.
Ms. Hoffner, for the truth of the matter asserted?
No, Your Honor. The question I had just asked Ms. Russell is whether or not she had a conversation with Luann Simon on May 16th, and she said no.
This doesn't prove that she did, so I'll object to lack of foundation as well then. If it's being offered to prove that she had a conversation with Luann Simon on May 16th, the witness has not said that.
I haven't asked that question yet,
Okay,
Your Honor.
that's fine.
So,
It's admitted.
Ms. Russell, if you could take a look at this email. It's from you to President Simon. Is that correct?
This is from me to President Simon, yes.
And in that email on Sunday, does it reference a phone conversation on Friday?
This was shared earlier today. Paragraph 2 is new and is based on the conversation we had Friday a.m. Did you want me to read the rest of it?
No, that's fine. My question is the we. You're addressing it to President Simon. Is that right?
I have no recollection of who the we is.
Okay. No, my question was you addressed it to President Simon, correct?
This email is addressed to President Simon, yes.
Right. And in that email, it said the conversation we had on Friday.
Again, I don't have any
No, just
recollection.
read the email. The question is, does it reference the conversation we had on Friday?
Objection, Your Honor. The email speaks for itself. The question is, does this document help her recall whether she had a conversation with Dr. Simon on Friday? And if he wants to ask that question, that's fine, but he is taking this out of context, and to be fair to the witness, should ask her if this refreshes her recollection as to whether she had a conversation with Dr. Simon on Friday, May 16th. That would be a fair question.
Actually, Your Honor, it's not my intention to refresh her recollection. It's to contradict the testimony she just provided under oath that there was no conversation on Friday.
But the witness is saying that this doesn't establish in her mind that she did have a conversation with Dr. Simon on Friday. You need to see the exhibit, Your Honor, I think, to understand what we're talking about.
Probably be helpful.
And I should.
No, I get it. Thank you.
talking about a conversation you had, meaning Bob and Christine or President Simon.
Exactly, Your Honor. And she's already testified she doesn't recall who the "we" is. So the question has been asked and answered, and there's a lack of personal knowledge and foundation on this exhibit.
And it's about Friday was the 16th.
That's correct.
It wasn't the day that was the 14th of 19 meetings.
It's about the McCaskill survey, as you can see.
Right, obviously.
Right. And my question was, did she talk with President Simon on Friday the 16th? And she indicated no.
No.
This email says it would indicate that there was a conversation. My next line of questioning is to attempt to follow that up. I don't think there's anything improper about confronting her with an email that would seem to indicate there was.
Except for the fact you already showed her the email, and she said, I don't know who the "we" is referencing in the email. So it's already been asked and answered.
Is that what you said?
When he asked the question the first time, I said, no, I don't believe I did.
You don't believe you
Did have a conversation with her.
Right.
So it's, yes, I started with the no, but I qualified it with I don't believe I did. I probably should have said I don't recall it, but I don't. You know, you show me this document, and it says that there was something going on that day in the morning, but in the absence of my having some clear recollection of it, I'm doing the best I can to answer the questions.
Thank you. I think it's not totally conclusive, but it certainly could mean any conversation with President Simon. I'm not certain after reading it, and it doesn't sound like the witness. I'm really confirm or deny that.
So as I understand your testimony then, after looking at Exhibit 27F, is it possible you did have a conversation with President Simon on May 16th?
Objection asked and answered. She said she doesn't know whether the "we" is referencing Dr. Simon, her, or her and Bob and or Christine. So it's been asked and answered.
That's not the question I asked, Your Honor. I asked
Well,
is,
it's very, very close. But the question is it possible? Does your answer include the possibility that you had a conversation with Dr. Simon, or that we means something else?
I can't recall having a conversation with anyone, including the individuals identified in there. I don't have any independent recollection of that. This is the first that, I've been shown that document. I would not have independently recalled even having done that.
So you could have, it's possible you did, possible you didn't. You had a conversation with somebody involved in the email, you used "we," but you don't remember who.
I don't remember.
Okay. That's where we're at.
you've testified that you were out of the office May 16th of 2014. Is that correct?
Yes.
You've also testified that at that point, without your laptop, you lacked the ability to send emails remotely from your work email. Is that true?
Yes, up until the time that I left to go to my daughter's track meet.
And prior to leaving to go to the track meet, you were in the office that morning, weren't you?
I don't know if I was in the office, but I could have sent emails remotely from my laptop at home.
Well, I look at your calendar, and it has meetings scheduled for that morning, doesn't it? On May 16th of 2014?
It does, but
Okay. And let me show you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 27A. And ask you to review that document. Can you identify that for the record?
this is to several individuals in my office, staff members from me. It's dated Friday, May 16, 6:57:37 a.m.
And that's from your work email address?
Yes, but at 6:57, I probably sent this from home.
My question was that from your work email address?
That's a work email address.
Okay. Move the admission of proposed exhibit 27A.
Any objections?
Other than it's obviously irrelevant since it all relates to the McCaskill survey and the witness has testified she probably sent it from home. So what is the possible relevance of this document?
Well, these dates seem to be all mixed together, so I'm going to allow it. Hope that things get clarified.
So that email was sent from your work email May 16th at 6:57 in the morning?
It's sent from my work mail address.
That's what
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that I was in the office at this time, because I can send emails from my university laptop from home, and it wasn't unusual for me to do that.
Let me show you what's been marked as proposed exhibit 27B and ask you to identify that for the record.
It's another email from me to a vice president, deputy AG, two vice presidents, deputy AG, and President Simon with copies. And it was dated Friday, May 16, 2014, 7:44 a.m.
That was again from your work email address?
It's from my work email address, but again,
That's a yes or no. Is it from your work email address?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Move the admission of proposed exhibit 27B.
Any objection?
Just the same one, Your Honor, that it's irrelevant. It proves absolutely nothing relevant to this case.
No, and I'll vote for it.
Let me show you what's been marked as people's proposed exhibit 27C and ask you to identify that one for the record.
This is to staff in the office from me. Subject late arrival, date, letting me know that it was someone in the office that was going to be late. It was sent to me at 7:25 a.m. from my executive assistant, indicating that, forwarding the email from the staff person that they were going to be late. And I just wrote back, noted, and this was on Friday, May 16 at 7:45 a.m.
Move the admission of proposed exhibit 27C.
Admitted and we'll see if it's relevant.
Let me show you what's marked as proposed exhibit 27D.
Your Honor, for my objection for the record, just be noted on C, please.
Relevant?
Yes, thank you.
Can you identify that for the record for me?
Yes, it was a email to President Simon with a copy to several other individuals from me regarding draft McCaskill supplemental response. It's dated Sunday, May 18th, 2:14 at 10 p.m. And it just says noted in handling.
And that email was to whom?
It was to me from President Simon Friday at 12:31 p.m.
Move the admission of proposed exhibit 27D.
Pardon me, Your Honor?
Admitting it,
Subject to my objection.
your objection that maybe it's irrelevant. I think there's potential relevance because a big issue here is the amount of communication between Ms. Granbury Russell and Dr. Simon, and this is certainly evidence that there's a lot of communication, but we don't know yet if it's going to be relevant communication.
That was 27D.
D is in dog. Yes. Looking at 27D, what was the email that you were responding to from President Simon? What was the date and time of that email?
The one from President Simon?
Yes.
It was Friday, May 16 at 12:31 p.m.
And what did it say?
The email?
Yes.
The content of the email?
Yes.
Do you want me to read it? The subject line?
Yes.
It says, regarding draft McCaskill supplemental response,
And what's the next line?
handle per our conversation.
And that was what date?
That would have been Friday, May 16, 2014, 12:31 p.m.
And you responded to that email on Sunday, is that correct?
Yes,
At what time?
2:10 p.m. Sunday.
Let me show you what's been marked as people proposed exhibit 27, I'm sorry, admitted exhibit 27F. That's the email we talked about earlier on your Sunday email.
Yes,
That was the President Simon.
yes,
Okay. And that references the we that we talked about earlier, doesn't it? The conversation we had. In 27F,
there's,
does that email,
This-
that's the one that references the conversation we had. Do you recall that?
handle per our conversation,
And 27F references the conversation we had.
Friday a.m.
Your Honor, we've covered this. This is beating a dead horse. We spent 15 minutes on 27F.
Actually, I think it's showing me the relevance of A, B, C, and D because they make it more likely that the B and F was included Dr. Simon. So that's what I'm getting from it.
Well, that's
You
not
can
the witness's
cross-examine.
testimony.
Well, in fact, Your Honor, President Simon's email says handle per our conversation, and that was on Friday, the 16th.
No, that doesn't mean the conversation was on Friday. That could have been the conversation on the 14th.
Again, Mr. Silver can testify when he chooses to, but right now, this witness has said what the email says.
I don't think he said the conversation was on the 16th. He said the email was on the 16th, so. Stop that and move it up.
Let me show you what's been marked as proposed exhibit 27E. And ask you to identify that for the record.
Okay.
And what is that item?
This is a email to me from Christine Moore with the subject redacted, dated Friday, March 16, 2014 at 2:46 p.m.
And is that the email that you described earlier in your testimony that she sent you later in the day to provide you additional detail?
No, the email I was referring to was the one on Amanda Thomas Shaw's conversation with her.
Right.
This is not that, I don't believe. I don't have the name, so I don't.
Would you say the date of the email was?
Friday, May 16, 2014 at 2:46 p.m.
And what email address was that to?
It's to me from Christine Moore
At what email address?
at my P. Russell address.
At your work email address, correct?
Yeah, mhm.
Okay. And that was 2 o'clock in the afternoon on May 16th?
That she sent it to me.
Okay.
I sent it to my email address.
Move the admission of proposed exhibit 27E.
Your Honor, this is a whole new level of irrelevance, and I realize you're at a disadvantage because you don't have this email in front of you, but this is an email that was sent to Ms. Russell on May 16th by Christine Moore regarding some faculty member now admitting to having a consensual affair years ago. So the fact that she got an email from somebody on May 16th about something that has absolutely nothing in the world to do with this case it just can't possibly prove anything relevant to this matter.
Your Honor, it was sent to her work email at the date, May 16th of 2014, at the time that, according to Ms. Russell, she was not at her work email. But the instruction she provided to Ms. Moore was to send the email at approximately the same time to her personal email about the details of the Amanda Thomas Show complaint because she was not in the office and couldn't access it. Well, how can both of those things be the case? Why would she have one sent to her work email and one sent to her personal email from the same person at approximately the same time?
Your Honor, if you would take a look at this email, I think it would be clear to you that this cannot possibly have any relevance. And that's the problem we're dealing with here. You don't have these emails in front of you.
Sure, I can pull it, Your Honor. Again, the subject matter of the email is not the issue. It's between Christine Moore and Paulette Russell on the date and time. That's the critical focus.
Is it just to show that they were communicating on the date and time?
By email in two different contradictory ways. One to her personal email and one to her work email. And my line of questioning will go into why there's the distinction.
How could she possibly know the answer to that?
Because she's the one who instructed Christine Moore to send the details of Amanda Thomas shows to her personal email. And she testified about why she did that.
Okay,
I've forgotten that. Why did you say you had Christine send it?
Because I was away. I was at the Kalamazoo track meet with my daughter. I had my personal cell phone with me that I have easy access to Gmail. Election. I believe it was on that day, later that day of the 16th, and I asked her to send it to my Gmail so that I could then use that to communicate to the unit administrator and alert him that we had this matter going on. I was working while I was at my daughter's track meet.
It's important enough for her once she left together while she was at a track meet, and this one wasn't.
Well, or it was to keep it off of MSU's email system, which is subject to FOIA.
Your Honor, that's just argument or speculation that has nothing to do with the admissibility of this exhibit.
I'm not admitting this one.
Ms. Russell, are you aware of whether or not your MSU email is subject to the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, it is.
Is your personal email subject to the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, it is.
Have you ever responded to a FOIA on your personal email?
Have I ever responded to a FOIA?
Right.
I don't know what that means.
Responding to a FOIA that requested copies of your personal email?
I did because it included the item involving the communication between Christine Moore and myself on the Thomas Shaw conversation.
You responded to a FOIA?
Yes.
When was that?
Multiple times, particularly as they've come from others requesting documentation, and I have submitted that information to the FOIA officer.
And you testified earlier that when you took vacation time, it was reflected on your calendar. Is that correct?
Usually if I took extended periods of time out of the office, yes.
You could look at your calendar for May 16th of 2014. When did you mark yourself out?
I don't have to necessarily mark myself out. I have it noted on my calendar, 12 a.m., CAT track, regionals 5:16 and 17 Kalamazoo.
Look at the 2 o'clock entry.
It says no appointments,
From when?
2 to 5,
Okay.
which was a typical protection of time.
Well, except you had appointments that morning on your calendar, didn't you?
But I didn't attend them.
Well, they weren't canceled, were they?
My staff took care of those.
Where on your calendar does it show that those were canceled?
They're not showing as canceled. My calendar often reflects meetings that were scheduled, whether for me or my staff, so that I have knowledge of the work that's being done. The 3 items that are on that calendar, 9:30 to 11:30, were 60-50 small group meetings.
So you're saying all of the emails that were sent that morning from your work email were sent by you from home?
I am saying that that is very likely the case. That, they were either, I'm pretty certain they were from home, especially that early in the morning.
Well, they weren't from the track meet in Kalamazoo, though, right?
No, they were not.
Okay. You've been interviewed about this incident a number of times, haven't you?
Yes.
You've also given several different versions of your involvement in this matter, haven't you?
Check for the characterization, Your Honor.
I'll allow it. It's somewhat adverse witness, although
Haven't you?
I don't believe that I have. I've tried to answer to the best of my ability based on my recollection.
Well, on May 25th of 2018, in your interview with Michigan State Police, you told the Michigan State Police that there was no protocol that required you to report complaints up the chain. Isn't that correct?
There's a
That's a
difference
yes or
between...
no answer.
I believe that's what I said.
You never told MSP that the practice was not to report up, correct?
I don't believe that I did, but I don't have a recollection specifically on the question.
And you never told MSP about the email that you sent to President Simon the morning of May 16th of 2014, did you, in that May 25th interview?
I was responding to the questions that were asked of me.
My question was, did you tell MSP about the email you sent to President Simon on May 25th of 2008 and May 16th of 2014 in your interview on May 25th of 2018?
I don't...
I'm sorry, objection, Your Honor. If he's going to show her the transcript to refresh her recollection, that's fine, but if the question was never asked, how would she, there would be no way that she would ever give that information if she wasn't asked during her interview.
Your Honor.
well, I think she can answer
Right.
the question, and it may be that she doesn't know.
You never told MSP about the email to Ms. Simon on May 16th, did you, when you were interviewed on May 25th of 2018?
I responded to the questions that were
That was
asked
a
me.
yes or no question.
I
Let me
don't know.
clarify.
Okay, she may not be able to answer that without reviewing the transcript, because she may not remember what questions were asked.
Did you tell them about the email?
I don't know if I did or I did not. I answered the questions that were asked of me on that day, yes.
Well, except you told MSP that this incident, the Nassar incident, was not reported up because you were not in the country, correct?
I was not in the country between July 10th and August, in the country or out of the state between July 10th through August the 1st or the 4th, which is what I don't know if I shared that with them on the 25th, but I believe I shared that with them at maybe the second interview.
My question was about May 25th, 2018. In that interview, you told them that the Nassar case was not reported up because you were not here in the country, correct?
I'd have to see what it is.
Were you aware that that interview was recorded?
Yes, they advised us that it was recorded.
This is a transcript of that recording. Your answer on page 13. I'll go back to the questions. Question on page 12. Were they reported up eventually, or was it something that maintained where your office tried to maintain independence from? And your answer, there was, I would say the practice was not to report up, meaning they were not given copies of reports. And then you continue. So in the Nassar case, this is line 18. So in the Nassar case, just to be clear, that occurred. Answer, I can't tell you. Oh, okay. What occurred in the Nassar case, and I'll explain to you why. Question, okay. Answer, because I was not here in the country when that report was completed, so I have not seen the report, and I cannot tell you in terms of what happened with the report. Do you recall that statement to the Michigan State Police?
I recall that on the report.
And they were asking you about whether or not the incident was reported. Oh, you recall that?
No, I don't recall that.
Well, when they asked the question whether or not there was a practice to report up, that was the line of questioning. You recall that?
I'd have to take a look at that. The July 1 comment was in response to whether or not I had the report, the final report.
Well, that's not what it says here.
Well,
You didn't tell them, you told them you were out of the country, correct?
I was out of the country in July.
That was a yes or no question. You told the Michigan State Police that when they asked you about this incident being reported up, you said you were not in the country, didn't you?
Well, I thought I heard her say that it was about sending the final report up as well.
Well, the problem is, Your Honor, that was the answer she gave. That was not responsive to the question they asked. They asked her whether or not it was reported up.
Well, he obviously reported it up. Or communication prompted by the email husband's on it.
I believe that is what happened, Your Honor, but that's certainly not what she told us May 25th of 2018 when we first asked her those questions. That's why my question is, why didn't she tell us that when we asked her in the first place?
Your Honor, it sounds to me like she was confused as to what part of the procedure you were asking, but I think it was clear she was talking about the final report, which I believe was finished at the end of July, and that's the point at which she was out of the country. And so I think the question is unnecessarily confusing things.
Well, let me see if I can break it down. They asked you the question, was there a process or mechanism for which your office would report to administrators at MSU? In other words, the president or the provost. You asked of any investigation. They answered yes. For example, the Nassar case. Okay, so we're talking about not final reports. We're talking about whether or not the investigation, whether the process or mechanism reported those up to the administration. Do you understand that? That's what you were asked May 25th.
Well, obviously I didn't understand that question because I then responded to the report. I assumed they were talking about the report. In a subsequent meeting with them, we went back over the information regarding the earlier time frames and sharing of information. But at that time, I apparently understood or thought the question was related to the report and whether those were reported up.
Well, or MSP pulled your calendar and found out you weren't out of the country in May of 2014, right? You were here. Weren't you?
Yes, I was here.
Okay. You didn't tell them in response to that, though, that you were here and had been notified by Christine Moore and notified President Simon May of 2014, did you?
This is argumentative. I think she's explained. She's been consistent from what I've been hearing.
She's consistent in her testimony today, Your Honor, but that's not what she told us before. That's my question. Why didn't you tell us those things when we interviewed you in May of 2018?
I think she said she must have been confused about what stage she was being asked about.
Well, you weren't confused about the email. You just didn't tell us about it, did you?
I answered the questions as best I could based on what I was asked at that meeting.
So if you weren't specifically asked about a particular item, you just didn't share that information. Is that what your testimony is?
I believe I also said at the end of that transcript, or at the end of that meeting, there was a general question, and I asked me the question. It was an open-ended question, and I didn't know what was meant by that. I was answering the questions that were asked of me.
You were also asked during that same interview with regard to briefing the president. You told MSP that you would not have briefed the president on Title IX investigations, and there was no upward flow, but you never told them that you notified President Simon immediately on receiving that report, did you?
Your Honor, again, this is improper questioning. If he wants to impeach, that's fine. He should ask this witness whatever question he wants to ask, and then if he wants to use the transcript to impeach, that's fine. But he's just having her repeat testimony that she gave in an interview back in May. That's not proper questioning.
Your Honor, the answers in her testimony today are inconsistent with the answers she provided us then.
So I think this question is covering something new that I don't already know the answer to, so I'll allow it.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
In the May 25th, 2018 interview, you told MSP that you would not have briefed the president on Title IX investigations and there was no upward flow, but you never told him that you actually did notify President Simon immediately upon receiving the Nassar report, did you?
They didn't ask me that question. They asked me about Title IX investigations, and I answered that question.
Nassar was not a Title IX investigation?
They didn't specifically ask me on that question.
No, my question is Title IX covers the Nassar sexual assault investigation, didn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So when they asked you in regards to Title IX investigations, that would have covered the Nassar situation, wouldn't it?
It was a broad question, and I answered it.
That you answered by telling him that there would not be an upward flow of information from you to the president. Is that correct?
Typically, there's not.
Well, you didn't say typically. Well, actually,
Well, she
you did say typically.
typically.
Excuse me.
Yeah, she said not typically.
I misspoke, Your Honor. Apparently, she said not typically. But the question was asked, and I think you already told me as far as the reporting up, there is no upward flow. And your answer was, yeah. That's what you told us May 25th. But that's not what happened in the Nassar case, is it?
No.
Okay. In July 26 of 2018, and that was your testimony under oath, you said it was not unusual for you to advise President Simon of cases. Is that still your testimony?
It would depend on the case if I would bring that to her attention or not.
Your specific statement was it was not unusual for you to advise President Simon of cases. My question is that your testimony today?
Your Honor, that is improper questioning to say, did you say in a statement you gave months ago, such and such, is that still your testimony today? He should ask the question that he wants to know the answer to, and then if he wants to impeach, if he doesn't like the answer, he could use the transcript. But to just simply say, did you say this back then, without using it for impeachment purposes is improper.
Okay, so are you trying to impeach her now?
Well, it depends on whether or not her answer is yes or no. That's why I asked the question.
Then you should ask it without referring to the statement.
You know, I'm not sure how many times we respond to the court's ruling, but if it's just a continuing dialogue, or do you actually, at one point, we cut it off and you make a ruling? Because it seems like Mr. Silver wants a continuing dialogue.
I want proper questions.
I'm going to allow this question. Say it again, please.
Okay. In your July 26, 2018 interview, okay, when you talked to us under oath, you said it was not unusual for you to advise President Simon of cases. Is that your testimony today?
What page, please?
What page?
I'm not required to list a page number until I intend to impeach him.
Do you have it?
I can do that, but I'm not required to.
One reading
A little too long.
is exactly opposite what you said.
So basically you're asking her, is it true that it's not unusual that she would discuss cases with President Simon?
Yes.
It's not unusual to discuss cases with the president.
Okay. In that same, in the June 26, 2018 interview, you told the state police that you got a call from Christine Moore in the early part of the afternoon. Okay? That's not accurate, is it?
I think that was my best recollection. This would have been around the time at the track meet when I asked her to forward the specifics of it to me. That was at least my recollection, my belief, what would have prompted her sending me that information to my Gmail account.
Well, except we now know that conversation took place before 8 o'clock, before you emailed President Simon, right?
I don't recall when Christine Moore specifically talked to me about and me asking her to forward that information. I don't know, and I've said I don't recall if it was either Thursday or Friday.
My question was, it had to be before the 8 o'clock email to President Simon, though, on Friday, correct?
It's also possible that I had another conversation, and that's what I'm trying to recall. When I said
recall
that
a second conversation?
I believe there was a conversation that I had with Christine Moore asking her to forward the information to my Gmail account. I don't know if that was Thursday. I don't recall if it was Friday, but there had to have been something to prompt her to send that to my Gmail account. And I may have said, I believe it was that Friday, but I've said it could have been Thursday, it could have been Friday.
Well, but when I asked you those questions, you couldn't recall the phone call, but you told us there was a call on the afternoon of Friday.
I believe
Are you
that
now testifying there's a recollection of a phone call then?
I'm saying I believe that there had to have been a call, there had to have been something that prompted her sending that to me that day.
Well, but you testified earlier that what prompted your email to President Simon was the call from Christine Moore, right?
Okay, I'm not really hearing about these different times. What I've heard that I call from Christine Moore very early in the morning and immediately contacted by email President Simon. Later in the day, she may or may not have had a call with Christine Moore, but she did receive the report from Christine Moore that she had requested, whatever it was. It's all happening rather quickly. So let's move on.
Okay. What cell number did you talk to Christine Moore on? I'm sorry, Your Honor, if we could ask a limiting order at this point that not be released to the public. But it is important for the purposes of establishing foundation for her phone records later.
Okay, so can I trust everybody not to release the cell number of this person?
About the phone call, the email on the 16th, the notes on the folder, and then the meeting on the 19th. Your agenda item of COM incident on that agenda. So your testimony today that the only COM incident that you're aware of when you went into that meeting was the one involving Larry Nassar's sexual assault complaint?
Objection. She's already answered this question and said she can't say that with certainty. We've already asked that 3 different times.
Okay, well, I think she's said that she is quite certain.
I don't
Okay,
think so,
that's-
Your Honor.
Then we can ask her again, Your Honor.
Okay, we will have to ask her again.
Because that was my recollection. Is that your testimony that the only COM incident that you were aware of when you went into the May 19th meeting, put that on your agenda, was the sexual assault by Larry Nassar?
To the best of my recollection, that is the only COM case that I can recall.
And can they turn the live streaming on again?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
That May 19th meeting, do you recall any of the details about that meeting other than what you made your notes on?
Other than my notes, no, I can't remember independently details of conversation.
Can you think of any reason why you would not have disclosed the information that you possessed at that time about Larry Nassar to President Simon, having written the note on the folder to remind you to do so?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading question. It's leading. Why doesn't he first ask her, do you recall discussing Larry Nassar with Dr. Simon during that meeting?
Your Honor, I'm entitled to do these.
But it doesn't make a difference what, which way he said it.
Right.
Now, maybe Do you remember bringing up the issue of Dr. Nasser at that May 19th?
I don't remember bringing up the matter involving Larry Nasser at that meeting.
Do you think you would have?
It's possible, but again, I cannot recall stating to President Simon the matter involving Larry Nasser at that meeting. I don't have any notes that would cause me to trigger a memory of that. It was 2014. I can't remember.
You sent her the email to alert her, right?
Yes, I did.
You added it to the agenda, right?
Your Honor, I'm objecting. We're plowing.
No,
We're going to be here all for
that could be
months.
argument, maybe, thinking that it's not realistic, but I think we have asked those questions over and over and over. It's enough.
Can you think of any reason why you did not discuss it?
Objection leading.
Isn't she just?
The question is, can I think of any reason why I would not have told her?
Right, why you would have withheld that information in that meeting?
No.
Let me just object, Your Honor, because this is an important objection. When you say withhold that information, that question is vague. Are we talking about specifically mentioning Larry Nasser, or are we talking about mentioning that a sports medicine doctor in COM was under review? It's an important distinction because
That's pretty clear. She can't remember if she brought up the issue, but can't think of a reason why she wouldn't have brought it up.
right, but what issue are we talking about? An incident with a sports medicine doctor, or are we specifically talking about the name Larry Nasser?
She had just said that she was pretty sure there was only one. Nasser was the only doctor issue going on.
No, Your Honor, you're missing my point. My point is she could have said during the meeting, in response to his question, she easily could be saying, I can't think of any reason why I would not have discussed that there was an incident involving a sports medicine doctor and not have mentioned Larry Nasser by name specifically. And that's what she testified to. She doesn't recall mentioning Larry Nasser by name during this meeting. And Dr. Simon, the reason it's important, Your Honor, is Dr. Simon has always said during her interviews, I knew there was a sports medicine doctor under review. And they're accusing her of allegedly making a false and misleading statement because she didn't say, I knew it was Larry Nasser who was the sports medicine doctor.
Why does it make a difference? There's only one sports medicine doctor at this point.
It makes a difference because she admitted in her interview she was aware that there was a sports medicine doctor who was under review. This case, they brought charges against her because she allegedly gave false and misleading information, according to them, by not saying, and I knew the name of the sports medicine doctor was Larry Nasser.
Yeah, that's a great closing argument. That's not an objection.
I'm not familiar with that point. Do you have any more questions?
Just a couple there. Let me show you what's been admitted as People's Exhibit 3A and 3B. Do you recall this email from Christine Moore to you?
Yes, this is the one I referred to earlier today.
And that's the one you received on May 16th of 2014?
Yes.
That was the one that had the additional detail that you'd given Ms. Moore instructions to send you?
I believe so.
You had that information then before the May 19th meeting, is that right?
This is dated May 16th, yes.
And does it have the victim's name?
Yes, it does.
And does it have the perpetrator's name?
It has the respondent's name, yes.
And what's his name?
Dr. Larry Nasser, faculty.
And does it include the substance of the complaint?
Objection. What do you mean by withdraw the objection?
Thank you.
It states here allegations in parentheses, very general summary.
Okay.
So I
And
don't know if it was the substance.
what did it include as the allegations?
Are you asking me to read those?
Yes.
Massaging breast under shirt over bra for 1 to 2 minutes. Massaging as one would if they were getting intimate. Touching and massaging butt and vagina under underwear for 1 to 2 minutes. Massing as one would if they were getting intimate. Dr. Jeffrey Covan contacted MSU Sports Medicine. It will be in Meridian Township Jurisdiction Police, parens not MSU PD, since occurred in the I building. Talk to MSU PD and inform them MSU PD will contact claimant and tell her process for filing a criminal complaint with Meridian Township if she wants to. Claimant is on vacation in Hawaii for 2 weeks. We'll need to interview her in person when she returns.
So you had all of that information on Friday the 16th?
This is what was sent to me on my Gmail on the 16th.
And you had that information when you contacted Dean Strample?
I can't say that I had that in front of me. I believe all I did was contact him. Again, this is going on my best recollection, that I believe I called him and I believe I let him know that Christine Moore had received allegations involving, and I don't know if I said his name or not, certainly one of the faculty in their college, and that she would be reaching out to him to let him know, and that she would be handling the investigation. At least I believe that's what I have said. I believe that's a call. That's at least what I know I have said to your, in response to your questions.
What was your office telephone number during 2014?
Well, there's several numbers for the office. 353-3924, 353-3923, 353-3922, I believe. Those were different, and then individual staff had their own direct line numbers.
The 3924, was that your direct line?
No, that was the general number to our office.
And then the 3923, who's that?
That's also, there were two different telephone numbers to our office, the 3924 and the 3923.
What was your direct line?
I don't know that I necessarily had a direct line, but usually if I would tell people if they were calling me to use the 3923 if I wanted them to get through beyond the, depending on the number of calls we were getting, then I would say call me on the 33923 number.
Did your administrative assistant, Jennifer Mishner, answer that number?
Yes.
Were you ever told by President Simon, as related to this investigation, that you were to play it with a straight bat?
I don't have any recollection of her telling me to do that.
Ever had her use that phrase with you before?
Yes, but it had been many, many years before 2014 or any time.
Your Honor, I removed the admission of 27G with the explanation of the additional emails in the timeline. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't. Sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry what's been marked as proposed exhibit 27G and ask you to identify that for the record.
It's a email to Dr. Simon and 2 individuals in General Counsel's office from me regarding the 2014-519 letter to McCaskill final without red line number 4. It's dated Monday, May 19th, 2014, 8:03 a.m.
Now it's from you, your work email?
Yes, I believe it is. Yes.
And that was to President Simon on Monday the 19th?
Yes.
Move the admission of proposed exhibit 27G.
How is that relevant?
Your Honor, because there was a question whether or not this was an in-person meeting or a phone meeting on May 19th. This email indicates not only is that the substance of it says we are scheduled to have our regular meeting today at 10:15.
Doesn't say it's necessarily in person versus phone, does it?
Well, it didn't say phone call, Your Honor, it said meeting. And on the calendar it says meeting. That's why we offer it as an exhibit.
Your Honor, her agenda says by phone, and the meeting occurred by phone, and you are exactly right. It doesn't say that it occurred in person. And so I object on the basis of relevancy and hearsay.
Okay, I'm not admitting it, partly because I don't think it's a big issue whether it was by phone or in person. The meeting with the president of the university one-on-one is an important meeting, whether you're face-to-face or not. And so this is obviously has nothing to do with the master case. That's not admitted.
Do you recall today, Ms. Russell, whether or not your meeting was in person or on the phone?
I don't independently recall if it was in person or by phone. I just have what the agenda says, which says by phone.
It says by phone, but your calendar indicates in person, right? That's why the 450 admin address is on there?
Yes.
And then in this email where you use the term, we are scheduled to have our regular meeting today at 10:15, would you use the term meeting if it were a phone call?
Yes.
Okay. You don't have a recollection either way then, whether it was in person or on the phone?
I don't have a recollection if it was by phone or in person, but again, we had a conversation because my notes are written on the agenda that's marked May the 19th.
No, you had a meeting, right? I mean, you just don't know if it was live or on the phone?
I don't know if it was live or on the phone.
Okay. I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Ready to start?
Your Honor, we will if we want, but Tom, can we break for the day, or do you want to start?
I'm ready to break, I think.
Yeah, I think so too, Your Honor. I'll ask a few questions and be able to continue.
Yeah, okay, so we'll be back here Tuesday. Still thinking you're going to need another day?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
After the 16th, you mean? Yes.
And we have a minute for the calendar or something, or do we have to do that on another day? We're going, thank you. We're going to recess today. Dale's going to get Shannon a calendar and you can start looking for another date.
The 6th. Oh, I'm sorry. Suggestion. And Your Honor, could you also instruct the witness not to discuss her testimony to return?
Continue not to discuss it, please. You're not saying she can't talk to her attorney about it, though, right? That certainly would be inappropriate. She could talk to her attorney.
As long as the attorney is not instructing her on what to say, that's correct.
I'm sure an officer of the court.
The schedule on the 16th, that would be 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock as well.
I thought it was a half day on the 16th, Your Honor. Could be wrong.
Shannon's the expert on that.
I had full.
All day.
All day.
Do you want your exhibit A and B back?
Please, thank you.
All day.
It would be needed. Thank you all for your kind attention and good graces on this long day.
Recess.
Thank you.
Well,